We'll pull the agenda up then. Thank you very much. And start running down that. Okay, well, let's see. Do we have a quorum tonight to call order?
We do.
Okay, thank you. All righty. I'll just run down the list. Oh, I think Michelle Bond will not be here tonight. So,
as will member Shaw.
Okay. So then, starting with across the top of the screen here, Kevin Munson.
Here.
Okay,
Here.
thank you. Luke Fassard.
Present.
All right. Alder Haniro. I see her. She's present. And of course, I'm here, and Michelle Bond is not, and Brian Shaw is not. Did I miss anybody?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Do we have the proof of posting taken care of?
Yes, notice was posted.
Okay.
No.
Oh,
And
there we go. We counted you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes,
Good, thanks.
we counted you present because we could see that you were here. Okay. And give everybody a moment to review the minutes if there's any questions.
I have a correction to make, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Please do.
So it was in the discussion, it's the 4th paragraph in item 2. And it's at the very end. It's talking about my clarification about what the purpose of the airport commission is. And it says, she noted that making people aware of the airport could improve safety. I didn't actually say improve safety. I said improve operation of the airport. So
Okay.
that's a small, but I think important correction.
Okay, so noted, and Brian will fix that. Thank you very much. Any other questions, concerns regarding the minutes? I guess, Brian, you can scroll down to the bottom of them. And do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Alder Fassard.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Alder Haniro. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, great, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the first item for discussion. Well, am I right in order here? Let's keep going down. And so under the chair's report, we have the proclamation that was issued by the city honoring John Halleck's service. And I asked if the mayor wanted to be here to read it. Apparently he's not available, but Brian did offer to read it, and I think it would be nice to.
Yeah, I'm happy to do the mayor's under the weather this afternoon, so that's why I volunteered to read the proclamation to the commission. This was the same proclamation that was received by the city council a couple weeks ago and adopted by the city council. So happy to read it. A proclamation honoring the life and service of John Halleck. Whereas the city of Middleton was greatly saddened to hear of the passing of John Nicholas Halleck, chair of the Middleton Airport Commission on March 4, 2023. And whereas John was born on June 19th, 1951 in Peoria, Illinois. And whereas John was a beloved husband, father, grandfather, and brother, and is survived by his wife, Jamie Halleck, children Eric and James Halleck, grandchildren Lily, Eric, Ethan, and Hannah Halleck, and brothers Nicholas and Mark Halleck. And whereas John built countless businesses in the Peoria, Illinois area and was one of the inventors of what ultimately came to be known as customer relations management. And whereas John moved his companies to the Madison area in 1999 and also created the Halleck Family Foundation and patient advocacy groups, including Met Crusaders and the Biomarker Collaborative, both of which help cancer patients connect and find the best treatment available. And whereas John was a generous civil servant, volunteer, and philanthropist, serving in various capacities on the Middleton Area Development Corporation, the Middleton Airport Commission, the Town of Vermont, the Black Earth Children's Museum, and many more. And whereas John was appointed to the Airport Commission from 2007 to 2010, and again from 2019 to 2023, serving as its chair. And whereas John had a fierce passion for aviation and was instrumental in the development of the Middleton Municipal Airport, Maury Field, over the last 20 years. And whereas John will be remembered for the countless people he impacted in their careers, and his legacy lives on forever through Met Crusaders and the Biomarker Collaborative. Now, therefore, I, Gardeep Brar, Mayor of the City of Middleton, Wisconsin, on behalf of the City Council and City staff, do hereby honor and celebrate the life and service of John Nicholas Halleck and provide our deepest condolences to his family. This proclamation was adopted at a regular City Council meeting of the Middleton Common Council on the 7th day of March, 2023.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Does anybody have any comments, anything they'd like to add to the proclamation or memories of John? Okay. For the chairperson's report, about the only thing I would add and ask that Brian, you had some information to pass on regarding the status of the fuel truck.
Yes, just two quick items to give the commission an update on. One, so the fuel truck, they're going through the final inspection of the truck as we speak. There's a couple of final items they have to correct based upon some feedback our inspector gave. And once that's been signed off on, then we'll get a date for certain delivery of the vehicle, and I'll pass that along to the commission members so you get a sense of when we expect it to arrive at the field. After it's been received at Maury Field, we'll schedule the state inspection to sign off on our ability to utilize it to serve fuel. So we'll get a sense of when it'll actually be distributing fuel in the near future, and we'll keep you apprised of when that date certain will be. And then the second item, just to give you an update on, a couple weeks ago, I met with the BOA representatives just to, again, kind of review the petition that the City Council and Airport Commission submitted for BOA funding for the various projects that were on the list. They have received our petition and have it in their queue system, but they don't have any sort of date in terms of when we can expect a response on our petition. But as soon as if and when I hear something from the BOA, on how that is proceeding through the process, I'll let the commission members know.
Okay, great, fantastic. Does anybody have any follow-up questions for Brian on any of these related items? Okay.
I'm sorry, I did have a
ahead, please.
question. And it's not about something you mentioned, Brian, but since you brought up the BOA petition, has our airport layout plan been approved?
It is. I don't think we've gotten final approval from the BOA and FFA as of yet. It's still kind of in their review process. So I will reach out to them and ask them if they have any more definitive timeline on when we can expect that as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for bringing that up, and we'll have that in the minute notes and follow up at the future meetings. And on to neighborhood relations and the airport manager's report. Please proceed, Rich.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right, very good. Okay, from February 21 through March 30, 2023, 4 individuals made a total of 6 overflight or noise reports. The reports are made via the city site, via phone, and by email to my business account. I responded to all who wished a response. No violations of regulations were apparent in these reports. Airport safety, no accidents or incidents occurred on the field and this time. Snow removal hopefully is done, but who knows what's going to happen with that. It went well throughout the year. We had some pretty heavy snow to deal with the last couple times, as everyone knows. I guess I was a little premature on the anticipated delivery. The Swift truck and the other news, it seems to be, anyway, it takes as long as it takes to get a good piece of equipment repaired and sent here. Only other thing really different is I will be attending the Wisconsin Airport Operations and Land Use Seminar. It's going to be at Wisconsin Rapids, April 12 through 13. There'll be a lot of breakout sessions, some good information there, and the Division of Aeronautics tends to use this to bring everyone up to speed as any changes that might be happening or about trends with the state. As for future events, First Young Eagles Rally will be this Saturday, April 8th. I've been told that we have something like 50 people, young people signed up for this, have an abundance of volunteers for pilots. So we're looking forward to another great season of giving young people free airplane rides and exposure to aviation. And then on the 26th of April, we're going to be hosting, More Airplane Company will be hosting a FAA safety seminar. Jörg Grossenbacher, the lead FAA safety team member for the Milwaukee Flight Standards District Office, will be presenting it. We anticipate attendance in the neighborhood of 60 to 80 pilots for that. And More Airplane Company, hosts that. We do at least one a year along these lines, one of the bigger ones. Otherwise, nothing else to really add.
Okay, great, thanks. And I guess moving into spring will be time to pull out the brush removal equipment and stay on top of that process.
Yeah, the plan is, and it's in our budget, to rent that brush grinder again. And once the land firms up, we're going to get in to the areas we simply can't get into. We've got John Halleck had donated a brush cutter, a very large one. So we're in the process of renovating that and coming up with some ways to make that work for us a little better. This well before he passed, he had donated that to the airport. So that should help things along as well. The problem now we have is the big grinder works well on mature brush like the willows, but the smaller wispy stuff in the grass, it doesn't cut terribly well. We're also going to be coordinating with John, I can't remember his last name, but he helped us out last year with the burning and very reasonably priced. So we'll try to get some ditches burned as well.
Okay, thank you. And don't hesitate to just bring that up, in each meeting as you see fit, if there's anything you need or any resources that we can see help keep that under control for you.
Absolutely, we will. And yeah, I should have brought that up as part of this meeting. It's just been on our agenda. We're just waiting for it to firm up. So.
Okay, does anybody have any follow-up questions for Rich? Okay. Then it looks like we're on to the financials. I'll ask Brian to please start if he has anything he'd like to review or point out to us. And then...
Yeah, nothing out of the ordinary. The one item for follow-up you had asked at the last meeting was if we had received our federal ARPA money. We did receive a check in the amount of $8,262 as part of ARPA funds. So that's been received by the finance department. And I believe there was a question about hangar leases, payments, if there's any that were outstanding. I'm not aware of any that are outstanding.
Okay, that certainly addresses that. I'll just make sure I'm grabbing all my notes on that. No, I think that's it as far as now. The $30,000 capital outlay, that would be for the truck. in March? What is that fee?
Yeah, I believe that's the earmark for the truck, but I'll verify that.
Okay, $46. I'm not too concerned, but it's okay, whatever it is. Does anybody have any questions on any of the line items?
I do. I don't see the refund from our airplane company accounted for in March. We had sent you a check for the overpayment for our operating expense in the neighborhood of $6,000, I believe. I'd have to go back and look at it. And I don't see that in the income.
Yeah, so this is this reflects all of February's numbers and
Oh, I see.
part of March's. So this that'll be reflected when we get the final numbers for March. But thanks for the reminder.
Okay, so that'll be in the next report. Very
Yep.
good.
And Rich, can you explain what the purpose was of the refund? I'm not,
Oh,
not
well,
aware.
yeah, our contract, we're given a stipend per month, and that works out to, I believe, about $42,000 now, or maybe 46, I can't remember. If we operate the airport at under that, we owe the city money. If we operate at above that, the city owes us money. Right now, we're getting $32.50 a month, as you can see through the manager's contract. That is, I know that's the way it's coded, but the reality is that's airport operating expense. So you can see it's approved at 41.8, so that's what we're getting now. In the last couple years, we've had additional expenses. We're originally getting around 32, and then we'd be charging the city more at the end of the year. They upped our monthly, and last year we were a bit more efficient and didn't quite have as many expenses. So at the end of the year, I do an accounting, and then I write a check if we're overpaid for our operations.
Thank you for explaining.
Yeah, it took us less money to mow the grass, to cut the brush, and to plow the runways last year than budgeted.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay. Any other discussions regarding the airport finances? All right, on to our next item, discussion on potential subsidy of the 94 octane unleaded fuel.
So I added this to the agenda based upon the feedback from the commission at the end of your last meeting. Just something that the commission wanted to have on the agenda for discussion. Envision this might be, the first of a couple discussions on this topic, but I would at least allow the opportunity for commission members to ask questions or, ask for additional research on this topic.
Yeah, so if there is no discussion, then I guess perhaps it's a non-discussable item, and there won't be any further discussion of it because I believe Alder Hanairo brought it up. I mean, do you have anything else you want to talk about? Or
Well, I know the commission, we had talked about this in the context of trying to make the shift as soon as possible to offering unleaded fuel, trying to get pilots to take it up, even though it may be more expensive. I guess the question for Rich is, are you able to offer, I know we had talked about this before, but I can't recall what the final status was of whether or not you'd be able to offer the 94 unleaded at the same rate as the leaded fuel.
Yeah, and the answer to that is no. The costs are going to be anywhere from 60 cents to $1 more per gallon for that fuel. Now, it's a combination of smaller, loads. So we're going to we'll coordinate our deliveries. So we will be able to share the delivery expense, but the fuel costs more. So in order to sell it on a par, you're basically going to be selling it at below cost. I honestly think there's a market there for it, even at the higher prices. People are flying now. Wanakee doesn't have it, but people are going to Sauk. People that are based at our airport are buying it where they can, and simply because of the advantages that it offers toward maintenance and aircraft longevity. So I believe we'll be able to operate and sell it at that at the higher price. Now, that said, if the city wishes to waive the flowage fee on the unlead, that would be a symbol, at least, of yes, we're encouraging it, and that would drop the price by 10 cents a gallon. Not that that's terribly significant, but symbolically, it would perhaps mean something to not only the clients, but the city as a whole. But other than that, looking at our finances, I can't see how we can afford to potentially put $10,000, $20,000 of airport operating funds into subsidizing fuel. I'd have to really look at that to see if that's even, I mean, Wisconsin has a minimum markup level on this stuff, or on this stuff, on fuel. You're not supposed to sell it at a loss. So I don't know if we'd be running foul of that. I'm not even sure what the FAA has to say, if anything, about it. But that's my feeling on it. If we're going to do anything, waive the flowage. It won't cost the airport much, and it'll be at least symbolically showing that we support it. Other than that, I'm fine if we keep that 10 cents a gallon on there and run it in as every other fuel that we're selling out there has.
Thank you. I guess I love simplicity, and if it's the case that you think pilots will have other, and they're not going to be deterred by the higher price because of the added benefits to their aircraft, I'm content to just wait and see what happens. Are we going to get people taking it up, all the pilots who can in their aircraft? So we can come back to this at another time and think about whether a subsidy might be necessary.
Certainly, once we have some sales numbers, we'll have a lot better idea on it. There will be people that won't buy it. They'll just go with the cheapest fuel. But there are others that are thinking a little bit more about the operations and the whole reason for having the unlead. So there'll definitely be a market for it.
Thanks.
Looks like Kevin has his hand up.
Yeah, Rich, what's the price of 100 low lead out at Moray right now?
I think we're right at $6 a gallon now, Kevin, for a full serve or thereabouts. Yeah.
So we're looking at 10-15% premium for the 94 approximate. Okay.
Yep. And with the Saudis dropping production by 1 million gallons or whatever it is, we're likely to see this all increase, as we're already seeing it at the pumps, car gas. So
sure. Okay. Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions along this line or discussion related to it? Yeah, my only closing comment to all that would be is, that it has been brought up already in the past that it's a desire to have the airport to be self-sustaining. And so I think we do have to be mindful of that. And so if we would be asking the airport to subsidize the cost of fuel, that would be, going counter to the airport's ability to be self-sustaining. And I think, larger and a broader scope in terms of looking at, all the different departments and entities that the city is responsible for. There are those that are simply not self-sustaining, that are completely, obviously, just part of the taxpayer base. So I think, the airport is unique in that it certainly does have quite a financial self-sustaining component to it. And I think anything we can do to help the airport operate at that level is probably a benefit to everybody involved. Any other comments or? Okay. Discussion on compatible land use concept. Kevin, I'll let you start this.
Okay, so I thought that that graphic that the Bureau of Aeronautics provided was really good, because it sort of showed how multifaceted land use could be, and our compatible land use plans are. They don't necessarily have to include zoning. They might not. And but the different attributes of a good compatible land use plan was I think captured really well in the graphic that you sent out. It's definitely a little easier to understand than going through the airport land use handbook that the state of Wisconsin published, and definitely easier to navigate than the California land use handbook, where the Wisconsin state got a lot of its information and sort of a precedent. I think what's important is that so the goal is, we're a technical committee, a technical commission related to aviation. We can't expect our common council, the city council, members of them to be experts in all of these areas. So we as a commission would recommend something like this, or have the city and the town or the town work with the engineering firm, Mead and Hunt, to come up with some sort of a plan. I mean, that would be, an expectation of this commission would be to provide that recommendation. That doesn't mean the city or the town or either one has to take us up on that. But as a commission, typically we would offer that sort of advice, and the suggestion that the city pursues some sort of compatible land use plan. And again, thank you for providing this graphic. It's I guess the Bureau of Aeronautics has this somewhere, but it's really good. It's 2 pages, and here are the different areas. And like I said, it's some of these are federal laws, like the height restriction, what I call the TERPS, the terminal environment, keeps airplanes on instrument approaches from hitting tall structures. I mean, obviously that's an FAA regulation or an FAA statute, and there's regulations on how to enforce that. And then there's state laws, and then there's best practices. And I think that this captures that. How we implement that, I mean, it's really, if the city decides to pursue something like this, it's really up to the city working with the engineering firm, because it really does get technical and it is complicated. But that's sort of my intent.
Okay. Yeah, I went through the sections that you recommended from the BOA, and at our last meeting, we talked about defining what is vicinity of an airport. So, to that end, looking at that information, and then I also, spent some time just kind of rereading what we have in the city of Middleton's airport section in terms of educational information. I guess what I'm kind of getting at is from a big picture perspective, I think what's on the city website, the information is there, but you have to find it, right? And it's not upfront, it's not direct, like maybe this flyer is, for example. And what the BOA has to say in its summary sections that you referenced at our last meeting, Kevin, it gets pretty technical, but again, to summarize it, it's also quite clear that an airport, obviously, which is owned by the city of Middleton, is really obligated to be pretty conscious of the land use and space management around it. in alignment with all of these federal regulations, that the state put forward. So, to that end, obviously we're not, the Common Council is not going to move ahead with, with any type of ordinance behavior. So then, what can we maybe summarize out at the city website? Do we just put this flyer out there? I mean, how do we just integrate this a little bit more into the discussion every time there's development or something in the vicinity of the airport, just to get people thinking about it, too, because it's development isn't going to stop. The city is always going to be moving forward. That's the job of a city, to develop and be progressive and, and provide a place for people to live. But the airport, as we've all discussed numerous times, provides this massive buffer zone for water management, protected agricultural land. It's a resource well beyond just a place for airplanes to take off and land. So is it just a little bit of a marketing perspective? I don't know, but I think if we get in that direction, that's where we want to go. I can't stress enough that to our towns, ships that surround the airport, every little bit of information that has ever been put out there in one way, shape, or form has always managed to be misinterpreted or twisted in a way to, vilify the city and the airport management, when, what I'm trying to say is the airport's there. I mean, let's just try to find a way to communicate and make things, from a dialogue perspective. Airport's not going away, but yet the airport is trying to implement unleaded fuel. The airport's not going away, but yet we're trying to have open discussions about compatible land use, and so on and so forth. So that's enough of my podium. Kevin, hang on, I'm sorry. Yep, Kevin, please go ahead.
Yeah, anyway, it's, what I'm trying to say here is, as a commission, I think we're obligated as subject matter experts, take the politics aside. We're really not a political committee. We're technical experts, and as technical experts, like I said, I was surprised that we didn't have a formal compatible land use plan. Or what I mean is the city of Middleton for the airport. And the recommendation should be that we have something. It doesn't have to include zoning. I mean, that's, as far as our recommendation, but just to have, to recommend that we have something, that the city works with our engineers, works with the town of Middleton, or whoever else are, are key players in this, to come up with some sort of compatible land use plan. People think, oh, that's zoning, and that could be an element of it, but it doesn't have to be. It could be their own unique plan. So, I mean, and again, that's what I'm saying. We need some, we're expected, I mean, as this pamphlet says, we're expected to have some sort of compatible land use plan, something. And it doesn't have to be political. It doesn't have to be so, so rigid, but to have something. It could be as simple as, here's the plan. Here's how we define the vicinity of the airport, which is, if you look at the legal precedent, the vicinity of the airport includes the airport and then a typical traffic pattern, but that varies too. I've flown planes from J3 Cubs to DC3s, and I can guarantee you DC3 airliners have a much larger traffic pattern than a J3 Cub, and they land in 2,000 feet. So you could easily get a DC3 loaded with 30 passengers into Morey Field. So, but it definitely has a bigger traffic pattern than a J3 Cub that's putting around at 50, 60 miles an hour. So, I mean, that's the vicinity of the airport. But what I'm saying is that a plan could include something like that. If here's what we recommend. They're just recommendations. If you build within the vicinity of the airport, noise sensitive development. That could be hospitals and could be residential or anything. We need to let you know that there's going to be traffic. I mean, that could be, traffic, air traffic over these areas. Because like you said, yeah, it could be the encroachment continues over and over again. But like I said, the feedback that we've received on this commission from the public is, hey, we live near the airport. We live within the vicinity of the airport. And for some of the folks out there, it's too noisy. The airplanes are too noisy. We didn't know that it was going to be like that. So it could be compatible land use plan is if you build within, quote, the vicinity of an airport, then you need to be notified in some fashion, or you should be notified in some fashion that you're buying a house or building a home near the airport. I mean, it could be as simple as that, but again, I'm not recommending any particular attribute of a compatible land use plan. That all I'm recommending is, as a commission, airport commission, we should recommend to the Common Council that they work with Mead and Hunt, and there is money allocated for compatible land use planning, that they should pursue that. No, Common Council come back and say, no, we don't want to do it. And then we've done our job. We've done what we're supposed to do. We recommended it, they accepted it, or they turned it down, and we've fulfilled our role as the airport commission.
Fair enough. Alder Nairo, I was watching, I think Alder Nairo had her hand up before Rich.
Thank you. To Kevin's last point, let me back up and say, I agree Middleton needs to do something, but I can tell you as a council member, I don't want to pay Mead and Hunt to do a lengthy study. I see us needing something like this handy pamphlet that's like, so you've decided to build near an airport, here are the things that you might want to take into consideration. And to talk about like, the politics of it, I look at the politics, not even thinking about, our neighbors in the towns, but looking at the city of Middleton. I mean, we've had the airport since 1998, correct? And I can't remember the date on which we started to receive the airport improvement program assistance. Early 2000s, I think. Anyone know?
Rich probably does.
Well, we started getting funding, as in a entitlement funding, much earlier than that. That was in the Bush administration.
Because my point simply is that, the politics is that a previous council and a previous airport commission should have taken care of this. And, the encroachment, as mentioned, history has shown that most airports will eventually find development encroaching on its boundaries. I mean, we're long past that. That has happened. And I really don't see this council and this airport commission being able to fix a problem that is it's too late to fix. So that's why I like the idea that Kevin presented of sharing information and helping people understand, whether it's developers or home buyers or even people, moving into apartments, have something available on our website. Mr. Chair, you mentioned that there's information on the website, but it's not upfront, it's not direct, you have to find it. You could say that about many pages on our website, and that is something I'd like to see changed in the future, although I do not expect that to be the responsibility of the new communications director. But I do think there's some ways to improve the specifically the airport page, and put something, maybe not this document, because this is really, the brochure Protecting Your Airport is written for the sponsor. I think it's our obligation to turn that into something that is intelligible to, for us, the end user being developers.
Thank you. Rich, you're next.
Okay, well, absolutely. This airport's been here since 1942. So the encroachment, a large portion of it, not all of it, was done before the city actually purchased the airport. So there was no way a private entity can implement a land use policy. Simple as that. Now, the city, in defense of the city, when developments have occurred in the city and close to the airport, there have been discussions with the developers. The Whispering Pines, I believe it's developed, the condos behind just High Site up there on top of the hill. They have something in their lead or land in the deeds that say, yes, you're buying a condo next to an airport and expect aircraft noise. So the city has followed some practices. Did they have something written down as a policy or formality? No, not to my knowledge. But when a development happens or is proposed, often the airport commission has had to weigh in on it. And we've had some feedback, and the city has been proactive about that. And just to clarify, because things can get misinterpreted, the DC-3 is a obsolescent, if not obsolete aircraft. I don't believe there are any of them in active airline capacity at the moment, and there is absolutely no plans to have a scheduled airline activity in Charlie 29. I just wanted to make that very, very clear.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a DC-3 would be pretty noticeable flying in and around Middleton.
We've had a DC-3 land there long time ago. I think DNR used to have one, but I'm not sure who brought it in.
Oh
but,
yeah, I could put them down. I could put them down at 1,500 feet.
well,
With both my hands behind my back. Very easy to fly.
very fine.
Okay. One note I had here is thinking about this. We've had BOA members come to our meetings in the past, and to keep this as an ongoing discussion. So maybe we can formulate something. Would it be beneficial to bring someone in like Hal Davis or somebody? Brian, I know there's been some turnover at the BOA that has impacted some people we've worked with. Because I think to that end, maybe that's what we need to go back to the Common Council with is a concise statement and saying, okay, we want to put something together. We want it to be on that website, and we want it to be a discussion of compatible land use. And obviously, we're asking. Then it's a bit of an ask to the city because we're going to have to write something up that makes sense. But we're also saying it's not an ordinance. So, is there any interest in maybe doing that, bringing someone in for to one of our meetings just for some input?
What would be really interesting is to bring the one of the city planners in to let us know, to sort of educate us on what the city already has. Because according to, I think it was Mark in the last meeting said, hey, we do the deed thing. We require something, and then there was something else. So, what do we have right now? And what would we further suggest that we do? And maybe we could, bypass, even though the Bureau of Aeronautics would pay for all of this, we could bypass the typical meet and hunt process. They do a lot of these. We could bypass that and just say, well, in addition to that, this is what we recommend. But so apparently the city is doing some things. I don't know what the town's plan is, but that was according to Mark. So maybe we start there.
Yeah, I think just looking at it from a more black and white perspective, it's I think when we're ready, we have to say, what are we going to the Common Council with, or what are we going to the city with? And so I think if we're going to call it a compatible land use plan, then we frame it in that sense that this is simply to provide guidance, technical guidance in relationship to the airport, acknowledging there are all these other technical resources that are referenced, right? So, I think, how do we put together, also as Alder Hanairo suggested, so you're moving next to an airport, here's what you need to know. But then how do we make sure, for major developments at the same time, is the city always have that in consideration when they're doing larger developments? Yeah.
I think it would be good to have both BOA and someone from planning come in. I believe last time we learned that it's on the plat, an indication that there's a general aviation airport located nearby, but it's not I don't think it's required in the deeds. I think the deeds require some sort of acknowledgement of the right to farm, but nothing about the airport.
Okay. Anybody else have any other thoughts? Brian, do you have any other thoughts? What do you think?
No, I think that makes sense. So we can reach out to BOA and get a sense of their schedule. And I think having, a representative from the city and a representative from BOA to kind of describe kind of what's out there globally, I think will kind of illuminate some options that we have in front of us.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to be, sensitive to the city resources, and pulling people in and what you can afford to do on this. But if you're okay with that, that's fantastic. I didn't have any other thoughts or notes on this. Okay. Next, are we done with this section? Should we move on to the next discussion point? Okay, thank you. Discussion on scheduling an in-person commission organizational meeting. I believe this was brought up by Alder Hanairo. I'll let you start that discussion, please.
Sure. So the council passed an ordinance allowing the committees, commissions, and boards to decide for themselves how to meet, if they want to meet in person, if they want to meet virtually, or if they want to have a hybrid way of meeting. And we don't require, there's no requirement that groups that want to meet completely on Zoom ever get together in person, but I do think it's a best practice to have at least one meeting or even occasional meetings where people get to see each other face to face, because I think it just, building relationships is really important to all the work that the committees, commissions, and boards do, and perhaps especially this one. So I suggested that perhaps when the new alders will be appointed first. And I don't know, maybe Brian has an idea of when Mayor-elect Kuhn will appoint residents to the Airport Commission. But I think it would be nice to have an organizational meeting, the first meeting after those appointments are made. All the appointments. I think it would be good to have an organizational meeting in person and decide as a group, whoever's on at the time, decide how they want to meet.
Just a point of information. So that would, I believe, would be the second meeting of May is when all of the citizen appointments to committees would be done. So it could be any time after that, presuming that all of the appointments are made at that time. Failing that, then it would obviously get pushed back till those are finalized.
Rich, your hand is up. Oh, are you muted? You're muted.
Okay, now,
Okay.
I was going to offer the airport conference room as a meeting space. I realize that if we get a large audience, that would be might be a bit small, but in any event, I think it would be very useful for the new or the incoming alders, mayor, and committee members to have a tour of the airport, see the operation. So We perhaps could combine that or have set it up sometime and as a separate event, but I'm very eager and welcoming of having anyone who's interested come out and take a look at our operations.
Okay, fantastic. So to sort of summarize, I think what Alder Hanairo is recommending is maybe for now, we're okay with status quo, the way we're holding our meetings, but at some point, the makeup of the airport commission will probably change. There's some folks that their term ends, and I don't think they've expressed interest in wanting to remain, so there's probably no application submitted there. And then, of course, with a new mayor, it'll be at the mayor's discretion to reappoint new people. So for now, even our next meeting would probably still be the same makeup of people that are here, because we're into, well, no, Alder Boussard won't be here anymore.
Correct.
Okay. Do you think someone would get appointed between now and then? Probably not.
For the elder appointments, yes, that potentially would be done on the 18th, or failing that, the first council meeting in May, which would be prior to this body meeting again.
So really, everything could change. It could be me, Alder Boussard, Michelle Bond, and I think that's it, right? Kevin still on the commission.
Well, I'm only on for, alders are only on for 1 year. so-
Okay, and you as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's fair for us to make a decision at this meeting.
Well, I think it's the case that we could meet as usual in May, because anybody who's a citizen appointment, their term is not up until the end of May.
Okay,
So we could meet on Zoom in May and make a suggestion at the time with the members who are there that
okay,
we take Rich up on the offer. I think it would be great to have the alders and Mayor Kuhn do a tour, but I wouldn't do that at the same meeting.
Sure,
I think it
sure.
would be better to just have the new airport commission convene.
Mhm.
And it would be fine to do that out at the airport and do a tour if there's time.
Okay,
Yeah, and just to be clear, for that in-person organizational meeting, I think that would be different than kind of a normal business meeting. And by that, I mean, we wouldn't have the capability to do recording or live streaming or anything of that type with the meeting at the airport. So it would just be an organizational meeting where people introduce themselves, go on a tour, meeting adjourns, and then the next month we'd be back to our regular business, and whether it's a all Zoom meeting or a Zoom hybrid meeting that's held in the city council chambers, because that's where we have the technology to do the hybrid Zoom meeting. So we wouldn't be able to do that at the airport. So it'd just be a very
Good.
streamlined meeting in June or whenever we have that in-person organizational meeting.
okay. So if we were to do, so perhaps maybe doing something out at the airport right now is probably not the best idea this early on, and we stick with the first meeting. If there's going to be a first meeting, it really be at City Hall, where we have access to the technology, so it can be a broadcast and in person potentially.
I mean, I think that makes sense if there are discussion agenda items that the body wants to discuss, then yes, I'd continue either in the full Zoom or the Zoom hybrid. But if it's just an organizational meeting in early June or early July, whatever, whenever those appointments are finalized, I do think that there's some value in having new and existing members meet face to face at least once, and then
Sure.
the regular business meeting would happen in the next month.
Okay. Do we really need do we need a motion to kind of set this in place, or no? We agree that the next meeting will continue, next month's meeting at this point.
yeah, I think I have it, enough direction from the body right now that, you're open to the idea of an in-person meeting, and we'll know more information once some of the committee appointments are, coming to become finalized, and we'll work
Yeah.
towards that.
Sure. And then obviously the makeup that new commission can bring this topic up again and decide, what format they would like to proceed with. That's absolutely fine to have, an initial meeting with new people in person at City Hall. It makes sense. Because of the technology, and then obviously Rich's offer to have people come out to the airport who are part of the airport commission. I think it's a good idea. To really understand airport operations and what goes on. Can something like that be done? But we obviously don't want to violate any kind of open records. So we wouldn't discuss agenda items. It would simply be a tour of the airport, correct?
Yeah, be a properly noticed organizational meeting with, and the only agenda item would be new member introductions and a tour.
Okay,
It'd be properly noticed.
okay. Rich, please go ahead.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about the recording or the technology. Of course, any of the actual business meetings would have to be at City Hall.
Okay, great. Well, Brian, then we'll leave it to you, because we don't know exactly what the future will be. There will be an airport commission, but we just don't know what the makeup will be, and based on that, we'll have a first meeting in person in City Hall. Any other discussion?
I was just going to say that for Brian's benefit, perhaps one of the items to discuss at that organizational meeting in June, let's say, would be how does the new commission, how do they want to meet? Do they want to stick with Zoom? Do they want to go to City Hall? That could be a good, that's perfectly appropriate for an organizational meeting to decide how the group wants to operate.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, I would say, obviously we weren't at a point in transition. It would be easy for us all to say, okay, what do you want to do, and take a vote on it. But I think in fairness to the future, let's let that decision be made up more by the next composition of the commission. Okay, we sort of discussed future event agenda items by talking about setting up our future meetings. Do we have other discussion on future events? Please go ahead, Alder Hanairo.
Sure, thank you. I have two suggestions. And again, this one may be something to talk about at the organizational meeting with the new members. But I feel like, my background is in radioactive waste management, and you literally can't get any more toxic than that for an issue. And so I am very sensitive to, public input and giving the public an opportunity to express concerns. And I recognize the experience of developing the airport master plan maybe soured folks on having public input at meetings. But I do think it would be worthwhile for the Airport Commission to consider, perhaps at the organizational meeting, whether to at least occasionally include a public comment section on the agenda. I know the Sustainability Committee always has public comments at the beginning, and typically we get people weighing in on things. I think it's an important courtesy to extend to our neighbors and residents within Middleton who may have concerns. Like council, they're limited to 3 minutes. And I think it's worth doing this, like I said, at least occasionally, if not every meeting. So I'd like to have that considered. Maybe we talk about that at the next meeting and make a suggestion to the folks in June. And then the second thing is, and this is something that a few constituents have brought up, and that is I don't know enough about the possible pros and cons of having a right turn for the flight pattern. But I do know that it's been raised a lot. And so I would like to see a discussion at a future meeting about whether there's potential to reduce noise complaints if a right turn were implemented, what the safety concerns might be, what obstacles would stand in the way of doing something like that. I think it's a good educational piece.
Okay. And Brian, to that end, if we're going to maybe get somebody here from the BOA, let's use their time wisely then, because that would be, a good person to hear from them on this topic. So maybe then we can kind of save up a couple of things for a discussion with them. I think that's quite would be a good use of their time. Any other? I think Kevin, did you have your hand up first and then Rich right away? Go ahead, please.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with Lisa on both items. I think at least at some frequency, we should allow public input as long as it's managed properly. It addresses the issues on the agenda that we're talking about, things like that. And secondly, yeah, there's been a lot of study and discussion around this right-hand pattern that a lot of people may not be aware of. I mean, it was actually, Rich can back me up on this. It was done even before the study and the recommendations by the FAA and all that were done before I was on this commission. So I think it wouldn't hurt to have those discussions.
Okay, no, thank you. Then that's good. We'll add that to it. Rich?
Yeah, I would like to add, yes, we've had this starting very early on in the airport, the history. We've had the Division of Aeronautics out to address it back in the right around 2005. It would be very worthwhile to go back and look at the minutes and see what's already been said about this.
Okay.
And I know every so many years we have to revisit it.
Sure.
But the arguments against it and the safety concerns still remain. So
Okay.
that would be, I would suggest that we do an archive search and maybe have those available at the next session or prior to discussing this right-hand traffic pattern.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, good. Well, that's we got a few items set up for future meetings. Does anybody else have any suggestions or recommendations they'd like to keep at the next meeting? Okay, well, I guess we're at the end. Then it would be a good point to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a first on that?
So moved.
Oh, Luke, you beat me to it. I was
Mhm.
going to make a motion that before we adjourn,
Oh, yes.
we thank and honor Alder Fassard for his service on the Airport Commission and on the council.
Thank
Oh,
you.
absolutely.
Very much appreciate that. That's very sweet of you. Thank you. It's been an honor to serve with all of the defined public servants, both on the council and the Airport Commission and the numerous other committees and commissions of which I've been pleased to be a part.
Great. And now I will second my colleague's motion to adjourn.
Okay, do we have approval on our adjournment, or do we want to keep going?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The meeting is.
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.